always about me, Doug. Always.
All right. Hey, welcome to Pagitt Radio. We're going to give a call to Kimberly Yim. Kimberly Yim is the author of the book, Refuse to Do Nothing. She is one of the abolitionist mamas, as she self-declares. Mm-hmm. That's not me being snarky on that, by the way.
No.
So that's her being that's her being clever. It's her being clever. We haven't met Kimberly, so we don't know what her what her spirit, what her tenor. But I think she's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So hopefully she's going to answer. Hopefully
Hello?
she's going to answer. Hi, Kimberly Yim. This is Doug Pagitt and Victoria Lynn.
Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, how are you guys?
We are great. How are you?
Great.
We are quite excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
And you are the co-author of the book, Refuse
Yes.
to Do Nothing.
Refuse to do nothing. Yes.
And you also fashion yourself as one of the abolitionist mamas.
Yes. Locally, we are now calling ourselves the San Clemente abolitionists in hopes that other women across the country would just have something generic to be able to, not just women, but also men, if they want to start local groups, can call themselves like
They don't have
the
to be
Colorado
mamas
Springs
Nice.
abolitionists. Yeah, the New York abolitionists, whatever. Something that can be duplicated fairly easily.
And your partner in this book and some of this effort is Shane Moore, and Shane has written on this topic before. Is that right?
Shane wrote on the issues of the AIDS pandemic in sub-Saharan Africa and extreme global poverty in her book Global Soccer Mom.
Oh, global. That's it. Yeah. We had Shane on the show a couple of years ago, and I couldn't remember, but I think we talked about abolitionist issues then, but maybe not.
Yeah, that's part of how we got connected. Was she was writing that book and doing some traveling and was part of the one campaign, and I started seeing what she was doing on Facebook and thought, how is she doing that? How she has more of this global voice? And I started reaching out to her saying, when you're traveling, when you're doing all this, pay attention to this issue. Are you seeing this stuff? I figured she already had that global voice. I figured I'm sure she had started seeing that stuff, and so I kind of reached out and thinking that she could be kind of the global spokesperson on this issue as well. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of part of our kind of story of how we kind of got connected.
Well, Kimberly, tell us how you got interested in abolitionist issues. What's been your path into thinking about this, and we'll have you describe the sort of situation of global slavery and human trafficking and all. But how did you get into it?
I was first invited to see the pre-screening of the film Call and Response by some friends of mine here in San Clemente. They were involved in some of the marketing materials for the film, and I initially went as more as a support of a friend. I thought, sure, I'll go see that. That sounds,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be a supportive friend and go see what they're talking about. But at that point, I did not know about what human trafficking was, or never had heard the term modern day slavery,
Mm-hmm.
and completely underestimated what I was about to see. And that was kind of my first entry into understanding what was going on in our world. And at that point, I kind of thought I knew. I read the paper and felt I was fairly educated, but completely was blown away about the reality and was really surprised that I had no idea. And, that was kind of the initial coming into, and I was so surprised, and I thought, you've got to be kidding me. And I found myself doing more research about it, thinking if I understood the problem, then that might be helpful. And that's when I just started reading everything I could find. But the more and more I read and the more I tried to get educated, the angrier I got, because I realized people had been fighting this problem for 10 years at that point. And I was kind of just waking up to what was going on. And yeah, so that's kind of the initial.
And do you see yourself as an activist type of person, or did this issue kind of stir up in you something that wasn't in you before?
Yes, I did not see myself as an activist. I
No,
could point to
you're
the
not a
people I thought
protester. You
were-
don't.
I mean, I
You
was
don't have
just
a bunch
mom.
of signs in
I
your
mean,
garage for the issues
Have
that
you
you
been
like.
arrested?
Have you ever been arrested for anything? Are you one of those?
Yeah, no, never been arrested. Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I never saw myself as an activist.
Mhm.
To be quite honest, I probably thought that was kind of more out there, like that kind of,
Mhm.
you know, that was definitely more in the. I don't know if would be entirely accurate.
Hey,
but
this is
probably,
religious radio. That's not quite right. You can say it. You can say whatever you like on this one.
Yeah, more fringe or more liberal than I thought I was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah. Some liberal social do-gooder.
I was a suburban mom. I live in a small beach town. I took care of my 2 little kids at the time. That was kind of my focus. I just had started working a little bit part-time out of my house, and that was, you know, taking care of them.
Give us the
my
thumbnail.
life.
Give us the thumbnail of the slavery situation in the world as you understand it. What's going on?
Well, globally, it's officially illegal, and it has been for a while,
Mhm.
and everywhere, every country, everywhere. UN. I mean, this is like the it's illegal.
Yeah.
But it's literally happening everywhere.
And it might strike people as odd that you would say that, but that's a big deal because it didn't used to be, right? Like the UN has made a big deal, and Condoleezza Rice and the Bush
I mean, if
administration
you think about
pushed pretty
slavery, used
hard.
to be legal here in the United States.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't too long ago that you were a successful business guy if you had a number of slaves working your plantation.
Mhm.
I mean, that wasn't in that far distant
Mhm.
history of ours that was the
Mhm.
case. So
And around the world, there
definitely-
wasn't international pressure to bring an end to human trafficking.
right.
I mean, even 20 years ago,
mean,
15 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that kind of came about when, you know, we had our own laws, but we didn't necessarily think that our laws should be other countries' laws. And over the course of time, and I don't know all the history of all that went on in the UN, and how globally our world leaders made agreements that the enslavement of a human being is illegal. It's wrong. As united global leaders said, an individual life has value and needs to be protected, and everyone said yes, slavery is wrong, and there are laws and agreements with global leaders to say this is wrong, and we will go on behalf of victims and rescue and prosecute criminals for enslaving others.
Huh.
And
Well, so then that took care of it, I would guess.
I think that everyone thought if they shook hands and signed documents, that would be the case.
Yeah.
But,
Everybody would fall in line.
Yeah.
yeah. But as we know, slavery was very profitable in the 18th century, 17th, 18th century. And even though it's illegal, the profitability is what fuels the demand for human flesh in a variety of different forms is what generates the profitability of this crime. And I think.
So what is the circumstance around the world if it's been declared illegal by national, international organizations? What's currently happening with it? How's it functioning?
It's coming in a variety of forms, from my understanding, and it's just below the surface. Some is actually flat out overt. We can see that in countries where people are enslaved in India, for instance, working brick workers. I mean, some of that is not all that hidden. It's generational. People are being enslaved by generations of maybe a great-grandfather took a small loan out, and now generations later, this factory is just enslave their family, and you're born into paying a never-ending debt from your great-grandfather. And some of that is not all that hidden.
Because it's a whole system where an interest system is created, right? So that the family
Yes.
can never get out of debt. It's a corrupt system. That's
Right.
It's not like
And
that money was never paid back. It's accrued to such a degree over the years that there's no way it could ever be paid back.
There's no way that it could be paid back. Absolutely. I mean, there's no way because they're charging food and housing, right? So for you to live under our roof, that if you're eating our food, and these are your charges, and the charges are always more than any kind of payment, and that's the system that was set up. And these are this is, I think, in some of those countries that as the government cares, but there's how to execute freeing someone, execute laws. Like in India, I don't know the specific details, but I mean, it could be in course of someone's lifetime before your trial is seen. So it's in the books to be heard at some point, but that could be 30, 40, 50 years down the road.
Wow.
That's how backlogged a judicial system is. So it appears, what can you do? So, and what's going on in Congo, you have a whole history of a nation that has been in conflict and enslaved for years. It's just part of your nation's history, and good people trying to sort that out, and a lot of bad people trying to capitalize on an extremely resourceful, lush country. I mean, just tons of natural resources, and people are being enslaved working in mines, working to get minerals that end up in our cell phones. So there's a variety of different ways it looks kind of out in the open, and then you have some of the stuff that's happening in the United States that's just below the surface, whether it's in some of the agricultural workers, restaurants, and the people that are serving, or whether it's in brothels, in massage parlors of sorts.
So a lot of people don't know that in the United States there's a huge import of women for the sex industry, and they are they're brought here. They can't their passport is taken from them. They're often locked up in a house and kept in that house and have to service men sexually for days and weeks and months at a time, and then are moved off to another place. And like that happens in almost every major city. I'm sure it happens in every major city. It happens in a lot of suburban environments around the world.
Right.
But that's not the only kind of slavery that you're referring to, even though that's a very prevalent thing in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, that's prevalent, and I think I think that what's been getting a little bit more attention is the reality. I think at some point people were like, foreign women are brought in, but now they're realizing our own teens are being are at risk. You could almost say that almost anyone vulnerable, if there's profits to be made, that they are at risk of this. So think about who our vulnerable population is. Children, immigrants, legal and illegal, at-risk youth, and I think that is who is vulnerable. It's not just women; it's also men, but people that are looking for new jobs, new lines of work. I think that's the difference. And we've seen it. There's been documented cases, and you can go right to the Polaris Project, PolarisProject.com. They handle our national hotline number, and you can go click on your state and see what kind of cases have happened in your own state and what's happened in the United States. That's a great resource to see kind of what's going on. But there's been cases coming out of agricultural workers in a variety of different states to nail salons, domestic help, house cleaners, domestic caregivers.
Oh, good grief. Yeah. Okay. Well, Kimberly, I want to ask